When a team wants to build an internal developer portal, they make one of two decisions. It's either they decide to build it in-house, they will spin up a Backstage instance, get that connected to their database, run that locally, and sometimes even deploy it to their Kubernetes cluster. But Backstage has a learning curve. The language of Backstage, which is Node.js and TypeScript, is totally different from what the team works with at the moment. So they need to learn that language and pick it up and learn so many other components like plugins. And this takes time. Sometimes it can be from 6 weeks to a month and even beyond for the team to actually get used to working with Backstage. Some teams look at that, consider all of that, and they decide to go the other route and make the other decision, which is to work with an enterprise platform solution for their internal developer portal. And then that could also cost them 6 months in trying to figure out how to configure that enterprise tool to match their workflows and their applications and their own internal toolings. Either way, their main problem doesn't get solved. Developers still lose a lot of time to toil. Processes that should be automated, they still lose time to that. Questions that should be easy to find out by just looking at the dashboard, they have to go to other developers that have domain knowledge and try to understand systems from them. Onboarding process can take anywhere from days to weeks when it can just be done within hours, and these problems still persist. There's a gap. There are teams that are too big to have their entire system knowledge packaged within Confluence, where anybody can just go in there, read one or two documentations and understand the system. These teams are too big for that, too complex for that. But they're also not as complex as teams where they can justify an enterprise platform tool, which is used by teams that are 10 times their size. That specific gap is what this series is about, and this is how I'm going to approach it. Over the next several weeks, I'm going to be building out 3 production-grade internal developer portals. Not just test deployments or local deployments or instances of these applications. I'm going to be building out production-level IDPs, real domain names, real infrastructure, real Kubernetes clusters deployed to the cloud, real CI/CD platforms, and fictional but very realistic client scenarios and applications, which would drive the decisions I'll make. Each of these 3 IDPs, which would be Backstage, Port, and Harness, solve different kind of issues for different kind of teams with different opinionated infrastructure, and sometimes just a framework. And I'll be setting specific exit criteria, which will just beat my checklist of things that should be completed, things that the platform should be able to do before I call the project completed. All of that will be posted on this channel. So if that's something you are interested in, you can follow along here. And also subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you don't miss anything. Also share this with people that you know will be interested. That also helps, push out the channel to people who are interested in this kind of stuff. My name is Michael. I'm a platform engineer based in Lagos, Nigeria. I've worked with Backstage before in the past. I built out a demo environment. I followed the documentation and built out some things, but I quickly realized where the documentation stops being useful and you actually have to go interact with the community, do your own research, and find out how to fix a lot of issues. So I know where the complexity lies when working with Backstage. But a demo environment is not the same as a production grade environment. And so I designed this program specifically because I wanted a production level kind of build with real client scenarios and real decisions made from client use cases, and a set hard exit criteria with mock client reviews that review everything built before they get pushed out as done. So let me walk you through the 3 builds. The first is a fictional fintech company, 60 engineers. This is the Backstage build. This is one that we're going to be deploying to Backstage, self-hosted. It's going to be running on Kubernetes. It's going to have GitOps, OAuth authentications. It will have its documentation on tech docs, and I'm going to build out a compliance plugin to test out Backstage plugins. And that's basically just going to read PCI DSS and SOC 2 tags and render badges in the catalog of Backstage. About at least 10 services populated with real metadata, which will include the owners, the team that belongs to the language it's going to be using, and all of that. The IDP for this fintech is the kind of thing that fintechs in Nigeria and Africa actually need to manage their companies and teams and applications. and it's not just going to be a hello world project. I'm going to use an actual fintech sample project. The next one is going to be LaunchStack. So LaunchStack is going to be a SaaS startup, maybe something like 30 engineers. I'm going to create the IDP for this one using Ports, which is also a managed SaaS IDP tool. So there's not going to be any self-hosting for the IDP for this one. There's a different kind of deliverable for a particular team that doesn't want to manage their own IDP for themselves with something like Backstage. They can use Ports, and I'm going to simulate that kind of scenario with Ports and LaunchStack IDP, which is also going to through the same things as the fintech NovaPay application. The third one is Medcore. Medcore would be a healthcare startup, somewhere between 100 and 50 engineers on the team. There'll be compliance requirements that actually are going to be very useful for a healthcare kind of organization. This one we're going to use Harness as the IDP here and see how Harness performs within a realistic but fictional medical healthcare startup. Most of it will be opinionated because it's Harness, which is not going to be self-hosted, and I think Harness is going to be most opinionated of all the 3 projects that we're going to work on. Each one of these projects is going to have a set exit criteria, which will be a list of things that the projects will have to be complete before I can count it as done, which will include the fact that it will have to be running on a real domain name, which I'll provide. It will have to be deployed within a real Kubernetes cluster and handling real applications. And I'm going to do something like a mock client review with someone that has some kind of domain knowledge to see how well that kind of IDP fails to them as engineers coming into the team and being onboarded into that. I'm building this project publicly because implementation knowledge on Backstage and IDPs in general is surprisingly very scarce, very hard to find. You can find video or documentation about how to deploy Backstage, and you can find some companies like coming to talk about how they're using Backstage within their teams and what their use case looks like, but specific videos on how to deploy Backstage step by step, they are very sparse to find. So that's what this video is going to be attempting to do. That's what it's going to be doing. So if you're an engineer, a platform engineer looking to deploy Backstage into your team, you're going to find this very useful. If you're trying to deploy any IDP, you're going to find this series very useful. Also, if you're a CTO or an engineering lead thinking of whether you should buy an IDP or build one within your team, or bring someone in who is going to do this properly for you, you're going to also find these videos very useful as well. Cube County is a consulting company, a platform engineering consulting company, and these 3 projects will serve as my reference work. They are very much close enough to client projects. So if your team is looking to get an IDP, you're looking to either buy or get someone who's going to deploy it for you, or even deploy it within your team by yourselves. I'm going to be taking clients early in 2027. So drop me an email. My email will be in the description, and then we can talk more and have a more in-depth discussion about what your team needs and where we can help you. The next video I'm going to be dropping would be on the infrastructure setup. That's how I deployed the Kubernetes cluster to Linode, how I set up my Terraform modules, how I set up Argo CD and structured my entire application deployment infrastructure foundationally, where the IDPs Backstage would sit on, and my applications as well. So don't miss that video. Hit the notification bell and hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one. Till then, take care.